Hi, everybody. Some kind of sad and good news in a funny kind of a way. Uh, Donna Boldness is recovering from a heart operation in Ohio. And Justin, her son, is saying that she's she's feeling better. And we'll let you know. Uh, some of us have received messages from Justin, and we will talk about this at a later date. She's now recovering in ICU. Okay. If you wouldn't mind, if you feel comfortable with it, ask for healing for Donna. And I would prefer that you don't try and send it personally as a healer. She needs help from a higher state. And some of us who might believe that we are already there. Best wishes to everybody in that attempt. We're just waiting for a couple more people to come in, and they're on their way, I think. We have a couple of questions that have come in. One from John Markey in Chicago. And he talks about there are so many tools taught in many schools around the world through history. Why have you selected the tools that you have shared with us? How best might we work with new tools that come to us, and how best do we discern which are in accordance with the highest will and the best, not only for us, but to share with other people? We've got a big dilemma. I didn't choose these tools, to be honest. What I did do is when I started classes, I was fortunate enough to have some of that energy operating in me and through me. So it would move my hands, and I learned through that and my body. And then at the same time, I searched out to try and find if there was any other tools around that were similar to those tools. And I found some. The reason why I use these is because they work. We have a big dilemma in our world. When we find or look for things that might be helpful, we have a great need to be an originator of things. In this case, personally, I was not an originator. That higher state was fortunate. I was fortunate enough to have it move my system. And then later on, I became aware of why they were helpful, because that was part of my learning curve as well. It's not about the personality, and this is where the dilemma starts. What happened years and years ago, as John Markey was talking about, is that many tools were brought in by those who were actually conscious and could engage with those higher states. And it was thought that some tools could be used for a purpose. The purpose was to have human beings become aware of spirit. That's what it was called then. And it meant the energy that was a part of enabling a person to be alive. We have many concepts about these things. Babylonians, Hindus, Egyptians, many different kinds of images you can find in some of the archaeological works as well. Find. They don't work unless you're open, or let's say, maybe I'll change that. They work a little bit until you are open more. The key is to begin to be open. What our personalities do with that is cranks out our relationship with our identity. This is better than that. That's better than this. All of this kind of stuff that goes along. And that was one of the ways of diminishing the relationship that actual energies or uh, practices worked. So what happened was some individuals, especially in the very past, uh, there was a priesthood or a kind of aristocratic engagement with those. One could say, you are not able to do that unless you can pass this particular test, whatever the test was. And the tests were, in a kind of a way, uh, aligned with or a version of what human beings thought might be important to document an individual engaging with another state through those who had already begun to be involved with a kind of other state. These other state levels on this level are rudimentary at best, but it doesn't take long for the egocentricities of us to grab onto it and use those concepts to imply capabilities beyond the average person. The average person may not even be interested in doing that kind of thing. There's all kinds of mental and emotional and virtuous concepts that come out of the imagination of us as a human being. And it's in a kind of a way, we're very creative. Our dilemma will continue to be, I think, over the years, what happens when actual conscious perception is engaged with higher states. We will have, I'm afraid, many people learning how to manipulate that flow the same as they do in life here now. Normal. Use it to engage with others and to try and win a discussion, an argument, or whatever it happens to be. And very proud of the fact that you're much more able to move a piece of something across a table. And this, by the way, has already happened with some, to use an intense focus to move things, to engage with other states and be able to be curious about what's happening in the world, but still as a personality. And this will continue to happen. I don't know how long. However, manipulation of these energies will put us in a place where we will be, as we are now, combative to some degree. You will want to be better than somebody else. Others will want to be better than you. This is not what I would call a spiritual engagement. I would call that the manipulation of energies, and that has already been proven to exist. There are few that can do that, but it is learnable. Unfortunately, when that happens, it builds a bigger sense of worth and value in an individual, and it holds them to a level of engagement that is wrapped around a personality. Isn't this what it's all about, Ron? I don't think so. Never have. Don't think I ever will. Maybe, you never know, but shouldn't say that. I guess you never know how a personality can be or not be. The relationship that an individual has with that higher state is to be, in a kind of a way, a tool for the helping of others. It's a very highly sophisticated service level. So these are words, of course, and words are used to enable others to be considered valuable and important. In our world, it's real easy. Do something, teach a bit, try to help. If you try to help honestly, you'll probably help some people. But engage with that higher state like it's an older brother or an older sister, so that you can be with it in a manner that relates to truly being honestly in a relationship with helping. Personality will do its thing. It will try to help and then look for credibility and achieve a certain amount and align with some, not align with others. See, the higher states don't do it that way. However, personalities do. So I think, John, I've touched a little bit on that. Numbers of tools, there are a number of tools. But if you don't open your system, and it is open to some degree, if you don't allow yourself to be vulnerable, you will then, it tends to be so at least, begin to think you're in charge. And this is not as helpful as people believe. And that's one of the reasons why, over the years, these real helpful nuggets have been turned into lead. And they disappear. And people do these interesting exercises, and their system isn't open. So it doesn't help very much. But slowly it helps a little bit. So I would say, be aware above the head, behind you, focus through the chest, above the head, down between, into this area, roughly about here, or between the eyebrows, but this is the area here that really opens. And try to do that as often as you can. Open your hands best you can. You know how to do all that stuff. Do this balancing, so-called balancing exercise, which will extend and open you beyond what you were open before. Try to handle it with your personality in a gentle way, because it will stimulate, enable you to perceive not only you better, with all our warts and whatever they may be, and good things as well, but you'll begin to perceive others better. Then you have to deal with you. You'll be judging others just as strongly as you possibly had perhaps done before, and maybe more. Slow it down. Try not to judge them. Realize that they're there in a place where they are, because that's all they can do right yet. Doesn't mean you close the door on those folks by elevating your own personality into a state where you think that all others are somehow less than you. This is a tough one for us. This is not an easy thing. But you did ask the question, and now you go on, and I will do my best, John. Just thoughts. There's two kind of how best might we work the new tools. Okay, I think I've covered that, whatever they are. I would like to hear you talk about love and relationships over lifetimes, especially those lives full of growth. Maybe talk more about on the tough lives full of tough lessons. See, I don't see it like that. Here's the premise that might be or might not be interesting to you. All of these lives are preparation for how you can handle certain frequencies. Some of us may not be able to handle certain frequencies very well. Okay, if that's true, then you engage with the life that will help you to begin to learn how to handle those frequencies a little bit better. You hear the begin a little bit better. And in fact, all for the purpose of beginning to be able to handle ultimately frequencies operating through you that would help another to grow inside to a point where they can be helpful to others in the frequency that they're working with or frequencies they're working with now. So when you look at love, that is a tremendous level of loving. To be willing to be helpful means to be willing to be okay with growing beyond what you are now in any one time. Okay, I have to say this about that again. That means being willing to allow yourself to have energy operate through you from a higher state, for a purpose that will enable another, including yourself, because that's an act of practice, help another so that they can begin to be helpful beyond what they might have been, remaining in a slow level of growing, which they are naturally and normally on these planes involved with. That is the nature of being spiritual. Wow. Why would we want to be spiritual? And most of the focus on these planes is on being important and valued by other people. Because it's a step up from our level of movement beyond the wildness that lies within us, relating to us as individually wanting to be the number one person, anything like that. There's no devaluation in it as far as those higher states are concerned. It's more like, let's take a look. Let's take a look and see, oh yeah, okay, that person is able to do this here and able to do this here. And that prepares them to be able to have more energy of this kind move through them for a purpose that they would really be helpful in the level of engagement that they're involved with now in their world for others so that they can grow. No negation here. None whatsoever. We do this kind of thing about negation. We don't really understand that it's about relating to and understanding others that are not quite able to do something in a more favorable light. Ah, that's where they are. They will continue. They will grow. How can I help? How am I permitted to help? Not about the personality thing at all. Wow, well, you can't really talk like that too well because people will start saying, well, that's not what I think spirituality is. Absolutely. Nothing wrong with saying that. Any other version is an option. I'm just telling you why. And you can see that I'm trying to be as positive in this because it's an act of love on the part of higher states. You use that love continually for the things you love, you think you love, and you do them. You attempt to engage lovingly with the world relative to the characteristics, the behavior, the engagement that you are always constantly involved with, whether you notice it or not. It's a reflex to do so. And that's an act of love at a certain level of engagement. If that loving was lifted just a little bit, you would add, how can I help that person? Because I know they're not going to want to recognize that they're being helped straight on by anybody. They want to make sure where we are at these levels that you're the one who does stuff. Nobody actually helps you. You're the only one that does stuff. And you help you, therefore. And that's how we are here. So if you're asked to help in relationship to a higher state, yeah, you step back a bit. At least your personality does. And help can enter in as long as you keep the best you can, kind of softening your relationship with that important level of the doer. It's an act of love that is really hard for us. Hopefully, some can begin to learn that is really exceptionally helpful. Then at the same time, they can be watching that flow operating through them, not necessarily knowing where it all went, but recognizing there is an active, loving flow of energy, of consciousness operating through us. Beside the inclination to have it be a certain way based on what we believe it should be like. What if it's really hard to get out of that? Then yes, it's hard to get out of that. You get out of it just a tiny little bit, just a bit, one day, let's say a Wednesday or Friday or some time. And it touches not only you, but all those who are attempting but finding it difficult to get out of that. That collective engagement with each and every person on every level of engagement that collectivity can occur is profoundly touched by an act of, in a kind of a way, unselfish engagement. It's operating through you for the purpose of helping that other, and you are watching it, conscious, aware, but at the same time wondering what the heck is going on. This is important because the mind on your personality level needs to be okay with helping another, but not necessarily being noticed as the helper. That aligns with the higher state. That one's difficult. And the alignment is related directly to loving. And that's where the dilemma lies. This kind of loving we're not used to. We like the idea of this good, bad, right, wrong thing. And there is good, bad, right, wrong in our world, according to the cultural background, the landscape of where you live or where others live, or beliefs. So, in other words, love relates to many states, different kinds of ways of perceiving it and allowing it to even be. And it's all of those states are part of learning and beginning to understand and searching for meaning. There's a vital aspect in all of us, and that is that loving aspect. If you have reflexes that are continuing or continue based on your life experience, you continue them exactly the way they are because you love them. They support you. And expression is given to that. So you can use it for those purposes until one day you decide this may not be helpful to me. It's not devaluing anybody. It's beginning to help them to see beyond what they've allowed. And this is difficult. You're in and out of these cycles over and over again because they are love cycles. Interesting questions. And of course, he also asks about deep friendships over many lives. It's really interesting. I didn't always see it this way, but I tend to see that or recognize, at least through my experience, little as it is, that others who are really able, you begin to be of that same kind of friendship or family as you attempt to do these kinds of things. And on those higher states, and I'm grateful for this, they treat you as if you will actually figure it out. Wrong sense of words, but you'll actually understand how it begins to work. Not saying you'll be able to do it all the time. That's a different story. That comes with practice. But it appears as if those beings on higher states can recognize those who are consciously aware to some degree of that flow operating through them. And if this is true, that means no matter how not able you are at this, you are still a part of that process of learning and engaging and practicing, whether you know it or not, or whether you overemphasize the value of your personality's engagement. That's still a part of that growing process. But much seems to be involved with an awareness of how you function so that you can be a part of helping you. It's all preparation to be okay with seeing some of your flaws and the good points and saying, so that's how I do things. Okay. Why? I must have been practicing that all my life. It's going to be not so simple to do something else. Yeah, okay. So just keep practicing. It gives you another little bit of awareness and allows you not to necessarily be frustrated with the fact that others who are really able can actually see through some of that camouflage that you have. They're not judging you if they're really able. If they're not so able, they will judge you. It's the nature of this planet to do so. None of us are exempt from that one. Go slow, but do it. Do something. You know what? You'll engage with some of these exercises that you already know, and you move away from them just when it's ready to blow something wide open for you to start a stretch of a center that will deter you from allowing yourself to see or not see how you function so that it will not let you laugh at you. It'll be too scary. So let's find something else. Let's do this and let's do that. Absolutely. It's just something you can do not to continue. It's okay. No negativity in that. Absolutely none. As a matter of fact, in one of the old traditional ways, when they were meditating deeper and deeper and deeper, and attempting to do so meant that they were aligning alpha and even deeper into the conscious state. So everything that happened on the unconscious state, very deep levels, the individual is allowed to see. And it caused many individuals a lot of, let's say, heartache, because they started judging themselves when they saw stuff that they used to think was the perfect thing to do. And then it was thought that humanity wasn't prepared yet to be able to see deeper things because it was too hard. Too much emotion would come up, fear, and it would cultivate with the belief system. You're really bad, God's going to get you. You know, we've had some of that stuff, still do. And so therefore, it was thought not to allow too much growth too fast. Too much growth too fast still does give an individual some difficulties, makes them nervous, more frustrated because they're seeing deeper. And they believe that some higher state beingness won't love them. That's not real. It's just part of something that we have in a belief system. And those belief systems have been important for us and will continue to be, so that we feel comforted in the way we have been, the way we understand things to be, and that makes us feel as if we're okay. Being okay is an important piece. So those higher states would not negate anyone's okay, but might instigate a concept or an idea within their own minds, emotions, that broadens out the idea to include some other ideas little by little, so that the individuals can actually not negate themselves by thinking differently than what they've been trained to think. That's one version of this question, John. Another part I can't really talk about, but nonetheless, because he asked me a personal question. Anyway, John does make a comment of how we miss the chance to be closer, face to face, and engaging with each other. And hopefully that will begin to be better as time goes on. And we're kind of looking forward to it. I think all of us are looking forward to that. Well, some of us anyway. There's another question here by Lee Martin, and it's a dream that can be interpreted in more than one way, as all dreams can. And this is just a view of an interpretation, Lee. One way that you can interpret this dream, and I'll speak the dream first. I had an unusual dream, Lee says. I was in a sort of residential complex with a park area and large trees, as well as buildings. There were various baby animals coming through as if escaping from some sort of zoo. I was amazed. I saw a couple of small elephants walking along large tree branches. I carried a baby giraffe of unreal smallness, curled up, asleep in my arms. I was soft and fuzzy, so sweet. Later, I carried a baby orangutan. Similarly, in a similar way, I felt as though I was being of service to them and felt joyful. Any thoughts? You have a couple. First of all, you can take a look at it from a personality point of view, your own environment. And you can do this with dreams. What in your own environment makes some sense relating to this dream? These animals are just animals. We're animals, so they're just symbolic. Number two way to do it. I'm going to let you do that one because I think you can figure that one out. But there's another way. It's just an option. I look at that from a potential option. In the landscape of a dream, This dream is often a dream related to an internal orientation. Could be lifetimes. It could be relationships with just people you know. It could be behavioral characteristics. But anyway, that's what it could be. An option, apologize, I have to read my own stuff here. When we're looking at a dream, and you see, it's animals as if they have come from a zoo. They're not indigenous to this particular environment. That could mean people who were wilder at one point were somewhat domesticated, you could say, by being in closed-in environments, a zoo, and they escape beyond the one kind of domestication into a relationship, a loving relationship, energetic, I would say, however, you can call that whatever you wish. And it gives you an opportunity to allow something to occur in you, through you, for the help of them, through an act of love on your part. We just talked about something of that nature, as a matter of fact. And this idea of a sense of caring, a sense of loving in an unusual setting, what we were just talking about is definitely unusual in our world, the way we see it and how it's logged in to be as it should be, sort of thing. Being able and willing to allow energy to operate through you for a purpose related to others is kind of a rare thing. Purpose related to yourself, not so rare. Everybody does that somehow, someplace, some way, and it seems to be okay. But this carrying a giraffe implies that there is operation, might imply that there is operational structures in your throat center being able to be helpful. The brow center is definitely on. And I would say when you're working with that, the solar plexus is on pretty strong. And some of the heart center too, because you have a sincerity within you that this is being shown to you. You have a true wish and a hope for others. Anyone that knows you would know that that would be true. So this dream is telling you something, that you can also be a deeper help to animals that are vulnerable and don't know they're vulnerable, by the way. For these animals to go into a park, ultimate vulnerability. For these animals to move into a space that is considered from their own perspectives at an animal level to be kind of free. They're free to think any of those things. And in fact, they are not necessarily free at all. I think the one thing that I find, it was soft and fuzzy and so sweet. Actually, it reminds me of the fact that when there is a letting go inside, it just feels that way, soft, kind of semi fuzzy, and it is freeing. And you can feel that whole energy flow all around you. So I think this dream could be taken from at least two areas. You may come up with your own thoughts, but it's trying to show you a potential, in my opinion, and it's trying to give you a hint about your own sincerity, and you should know that by now. And also, I think seeing animals in a park would make anybody feel vulnerable as well, but you didn't include that. So that I shouldn't even talk about. But it is a vulnerable thing to be okay with allowing yourself to be of some help to others in a way that you might not be automatically noticing, because these are not animals from our kingdom, of course. Okay, everybody, I think it's about 1:45, and I think what we can do is if I get onto another one, it's going to be a lot longer than we have time for. So I think at this particular point, we will try to meditate. I'm going to put some music on, and I'll turn my view off. Don't forget kind thoughts for Donna Boldness, and remember, she is attempting to be on the mend right now. She's recovering. Okay, okay. Have a good meditation, everybody. Now we'll just begin to do the balancing and grounding on your own. I hope everybody has a decent season, real good and pleasant one. Good night, everybody.